Yeah, hello, my dear friends. This is Bob Hatton. This is the Encourager. I'm so glad, as I'm glad every day, that you've joined me today. We're going to continue to hear about the cross of Jesus. We've already heard something of his suffering and his pain that he went through. Yesterday we heard that Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law by becoming a curse for us, so that the blessings of Abraham might be available to us. And today I want to continue, because not only do we have access to Abraham's blessings, but we now also, because of the cross of Christ, we have access to the power of God. Let me just read a verse to you from 1 Corinthians chapter 1 and verse 18. And the Bible says, "For the word of the cross is folly to those who are perishing, but for us who are being saved, it is the power of God." And Paul continues that, and he tries to he does explain what he means. You see, the story, the message of the cross of Jesus Christ is folly if you don't believe it. If you can't receive it, it is folly. It's just nonsense. How can a person who died 2,000 years ago do anything for us today? It just seems to be so stupid. And he mentions two groups of people. The first are the Greeks, and the Greeks were very much into philosophy. Philosophy, the word means the love of wisdom. And Corinth was a city in Greece, and their philosophy was a very, very big thing. And the people, they looked for theories, and they put theories that were difficult to understand. You'd have to really struggle to get your head around them. And the more complicated they were, the better they were. And it seemed to be that is the way of life. The Jews, of course, were different. They were steeped in the Old Testament. They were very legalistic, but they were also looking for signs, the indicators, on the heavens, that what God might be doing. But of course, this story of the cross, for those people, this simple story, it was an offense for them. For the Greeks, it was an offense. For the Jews, it was a stumbling block, because they were insulted to think that a man who had been crucified, a man who had become a curse, could do anything for us. So how do we get to know God? By thinking about it? No. By looking wisdom? No. By trying to look for signs? That doesn't seem to be the way. But it is by revelation that we get to know God. God reveals himself to us, and he gladly does that. And when we start to read the Bible, this is such a good thing. When we read the Bible, God begins to reveal himself through that. So let me encourage you, if you're not doing it already, start to read the Bible. Start in Luke's Gospel, the third book in the New Testament, and read slowly through that, and then read the Acts of the Apostles. Very, very exciting stories, but ask God to reveal his Son to you, because you see, for those who are perishing, this is foolishness. For those who are lost, for those who are on the way to eternal damnation, this is just nonsense. This way of escape, it's nonsense. But for those who can receive it, for those who can believe it, for those who receive the revelation of who Jesus is, this is the power of God. And if we can believe on the cross of Jesus and what Jesus did for us on that cross, that opens the door to the power of God, and we can access this power. And I've been a Christian now. I've been following Jesus for nearly 52 years, and umpteen times I have experienced the power of God. One of the first times I experienced his working was, I was a young man. I'd not been a Christian very long, and I was asked if I would go to Romania. Romania was a communist-ruled country at that time, and the communists, they hated this book. It was prohibited to have it in Romania. It wasn't allowed to be printed there, and you weren't allowed to bring it into the country. But I was asked if I would go to Romania and if I would take Bibles with me. So I said I would, and we had a vehicle that was specially prepared with a lot of secret places where we could hide stuff. And we took maybe a couple of thousand Bibles. We put them into the vehicle, and we went down to Romania. We had to go first of all through the Hungarian border. Hungary was also a communist country at that time. I must admit, I was terrified when we were on the border. We went from Hungary to the Romanian border, and I was even more terrified in Romania. But God took us in, and we met Christians all over the country. They were meeting openly, but at the same time, there's a lot of secrecy, and how we got the Bibles to them, that would be another story. But then we heard about a church in some small town, and we decided that we would take some Bibles into this small town for the church, our last lot of Bibles that we had left. But we didn't know the address of the church. So we went to the town, and it's pretty dangerous to ask for an address of a church, especially as being foreigners. We did have a Romanian friend with us who was acting as our translator, and he said he would go and try to find the address of the church. But even for him, it was as a stranger in the city, it wasn't too easy. But we prayed, and he went, and when he was in the city, he prayed as well. And then he saw a lady, and he got the impression he should go and speak to her. So he went and asked this lady, and he asked her if she knew about a church in the city. And it turned out that her brother-in-law was the leader of one of these churches. Now, of all the hundreds of people who were in the city centre at that time, he chose this one lady. That just showed us that was the power of God at work at that time. Now, another thing, just another example for many, many examples, I just heard a story of a young American lady who has a vision to build schools in war zones. She builds them in war zones because she says building a school is a way to bring peace there. And so she went to an African country where there was civil war going on, a lot of fighting, and she went into a city and they started to build a school there. But as they were building the school, the rebels moved into the town, and they had a meeting and one evening or late afternoon and discussing this and that, and then they said, we have to go now because there's a curfew and we've got to be back in our hotel before it's dark. So she had a team of international people, and she went with one or two Africans, and they were going to the hotel, but it went dark. And shortly before they got to the hotel, a man came out of the shadows, a big man. He was the warlord, and he had a machine gun, AK-47, a Kalashnikov round his neck, and he informed this group of people he was now going to kill them. But when he saw the women, he says, no, but first of all, I'm going to make you to be my wives. But the African leader, the Christian who was there, he said, no, you won't. You will now get onto your knees and you will cry to God and you will ask him to give you a pure heart and clean hands. And when he said that, this big man with a big machine gun, he fell to the ground on his knees. And they laid hands on him and they started to pray for him. And indeed, this man cried out to God and asked for a pure heart and clean hands. And when he finished praying, he was sobbing. He said, I always make the wrong choices. I always get in with the wrong people. Please forgive me. See, the power of God is available for us today, for all those who are being saved. The word, the message of the cross is the power of God for our salvation, but the power of God, the working of God in our everyday life is accessible to us. And I hope that you experience this today. God bless you. Have a good day. You're Bob Hatton, your encourager.